And that just leaves us with Deserto, in which we're going to talk about the Wallabies front row options, hookers, and smokies. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, cool.
No, mate. The front rows, hookers, and smokies. That makes no sense. We're talking about the front row options, which include hookers, but the three categories we have gone for is the incumbents, the up and comers, and the smokies. And if you turn your face towards our cameras, you'll see a beautiful image put together by yours truly here. So under the incumbents, we
Humble as
have
always.
we have the front row of Slipper, who has been immense and getting better and better. We have Parecki and we have the injured Alatoa, who should be good to go any minute now.
Yep, absolute gun front row. Parecki. I don't know, I just randomly came across some notes I'd written from some of the games in the spring tour last year where Parecki was just, he was man of the match in quite a few of those games. He's just was absolute gun. So I feel like I don't feel like I've noticed peak Parecki throughout the Super Rugby season. I know he's had some good games, but he's still, for me, by far so clearly the starting hooker in the Wallabies setup. But yeah, you got to be starting Slipper, and you're hoping Alan Alatoa is uninjured because Tupou and Bell, my fingers are crossed. We're praying they come back, but they're not your starters anyway. They're your bench.
The up and
So,
comers.
so you're just going straight with the image, Craig? So you're going incumbents to start, Slipper, Parecki, Alan Alatoa, and then you're going off the bench, you're going Bell, Taniela Tupou, and who?
Nice Lonergan, mate. Job done.
Yeah, and then we did say Smokies. We got Gibbon, Fazler, and Harry Johnson-Holmes. But for me, you can't have this conversation without talking about Falau Fainga'a, who, albeit having struggled with his own Achilles injury this year, I thought he was very, very good for the Western Force when he was around. And if it wasn't for Tom Robertson's ACL injury, I'd be putting him up in lights as well. Sam Talakai, similarly, has a statement to say that maybe he should be picked above HJH. Where are you with this, Nels?
Look, I think knowing Eddie, there's no surprises for me if we see something which I wouldn't necessarily pick myself, but we would see something like a Slipper and then either a Falau Fainga or Nos Lonergan and Alatoa, full Brumbies front row to start. I know we all love Parecki here, but that cohesion, and then if you've got someone like Frost in the locks as well, you've got a player that throws to him each week, and then on the bench you'd have your Bell and Tupou, huge impact players coming off the bench, and someone like a Parecki just to work hard in the back end of the match. So I think cohesion wise, that makes sense. I personally would love to see Parecki starting, so I'd just be going for the incumbents, but I wouldn't be overly surprised if we see something like that building on cohesion.
You've done beautifully to ignore every single player I asked you about. Well done. Now, I completely disagree. I think Parecki's head and shoulders above Lockie Lonergan at the moment. I think Nos has had a pretty quiet year and made far too many mistakes when on the field. So I can't see him starting for the Wallabies at all in the big game. For me, I actually think Falau Fainga's brought his name back into contention. I rate him above Fazler for sure. I think Fazler's had a good year coming through, and I think we've seen really that he has a lot of potential, but I'm not sure that he has the ability to scrum strong enough in test level yet, and I'm not sure that he's consistent enough around the park just yet, although I must say he's probably in the Parecki mould more than any other. For me, I've got Falau Fainga'a on my bench. And then I think, you can't go past if they're fit Bell and Tupou on the bench for me as well.
Yep, I will echo what you've just said. I actually quite like Falau has been in a very rich vein of form and just bringing that experience as well. You're right. Nos has had an opportunity to take that reserve bench this year, kind of the starting Brumbies hooker, but just hasn't really taken that with both hands, has he? So I would be surprised to see Falau. And the only other one I want to throw in is, particularly with all these tight heads injured, wouldn't surprise me at all to see Pony feature in there, Pony Fa'amausili. Just because bit of a curveball, just the kind of player, if particularly if Tupou's not around, that you'd love to bring off the bench just to, bring some solid hit ups at the end of the game.
Yeah, mate, or Kapusi Loft. He's surely qualified, and he can play either side of the scrum either, mate. But look, we're not throwing those names out there because they're not really getting into it. Look, I did say Falau Fainga. I mean, he really as I agree with you, Harry brought his name back into contention. But mate, as if the thought process when Eddie's talking all about cohesion, having a slipper, fainga'a, ala toa is not a really, and I did say that before, and you clearly didn't listen when I said hookers of one of the Brumbies or ex-Brumbies hookers. That is a really solid starting front row, and then you've got Preki coming on with Bell, and he's played a bits and pieces with Tupou across the last year or so as well. So you've got two very cohesive front rows.
Yeah, I love it.